Keith Myers. This is my installment number 2 on how to box with Wing Chun. We're going to focus on footwork, which is going to be a little tricky because I have to stay in frame. So bear with me and we'll make sure we can try to get it on film. I talked about last time having a kind of a combined old school boxing Wing Chun fighting position, which has the hips, the quad a little more open than standard Wing Chun, which might be like this, so that we can have that power line straight forward. Our hands go from here back to fists. So we went from, if you can imagine some of the old pictures of Robert Fitzsimmons, John L. Sullivan, some of the old guys, they're always standing like this, and they punch straight. And their footwork was a lot like fencing footwork. So what we're doing is just kind of making it more Wing Chun-like. So now it's as much Wing Chun as it is old school boxing. The hands are up, so the footwork we're going to use is going to look very similar to Wing Chun footwork, because Wing Chun has kind of fencing-like footwork as well already. But this kind of works a little more for a fighting, sparring situation. So if I'm leading with my left foot, if I'm going to advance, I just step out and recover, nice and smooth. Step back, step forward. So I push off with my rear foot, kind of a nice smooth heel to toe action. Why heel to toe? If you watch the other installment on the falling step, you'll see that just using that kind of heel to toe action gives you that falling step is built into your advancing footwork. All you got to do is then put that snapping punch on the end of it. So that's where it's nice to have a little bit of a heel to toe action that advance. When I'm going to move backwards, push off with the lead foot and recover the same amount. So I'm always keeping the same spacing, same position of my legs. Notice that I'm not standing like a fencer with my feet on one line, because then if I have to kick or move forward, I'm in my own way, and this hip is all the way back, so I can't use my rear hand effectively. So I'm standing with my feet apart so that my body is turned about a 3/4 turn is what the old school boxers would call it. So that I'm on like a 45-degree line this way. Boom. This way, if I want to use my rear hand, all I have to do is turn my hip just a little bit and brings it right on line. So I got advance, I got retreat. Advance, retreat. You know what the Wing Chun maxims is, there's no retreat. So like I talked about in the other clip, Wing Chun's strategy was to close with the opponent when an opening presents itself, finish the opponent, take his space, break his structure. Why would you ever back up? You're going to finish the opponent. In a sparring situation, you might go forward, you might go back. One could argue in a real fighting situation, if I fail at my initial attempt, I'm better be able to back up and reposition. So there's value in having these retreating steps, where I can smoothly move back just as smoothly as I move forward. Okay? Now, if I go forward, I want to be able to go side to side. So I always lead with the foot on the side that I want to move towards. In other words, if I'm going to go right, I always step with the right foot first. If I want to go left, I always step with the left foot first. So if I'm going to move right, all I do is step with my right foot and recover the same amount with the left foot. When I go back to the left, it's the opposite. Step out with my left foot, recover with my right. So I move this way or this way. Allows me to reposition. So for instance, this is valuable because if we're going to think in terms of kind of a Wing Chun boxing structure where I'm standing in front of my opponent, I'm using my lead hand to harass, to keep him off, to look for an opening. I don't necessarily want to always stand right in front of the guy. In fact, this is the worst position to be in from a Wing Chun perspective, because I have to deal with both arms equally. I would much rather be off to one side or the other, so it's harder for him to use his other arm. So if I'm here, that little side step gives me the ability to be lined up with the guy and then be over here, work this angle. Or maybe he's coming on strong with his left hand, so I can angle this way and line up on this line. So I can go from right in front of him to this 45-degree line, or I can go from right in front of him to this 45-degree line. So it's harder for him to use his opposite arm. Now, I can also switch leads. And a boxer would tend to put one arm one side forward and almost exclusively fight with that side forward. Wing Chun, we try to be a little more ambidextrous, although if you're going to train, pick the side you're most comfortable having forward and emphasize that. It's good to train both sides, but again, your training time is better spent on really emphasizing your smart hand forward. Some people, even right-handed people, that's going to be their left hand simply because they've been indoctrinated by Western boxing all their lives and they're used to seeing fighters standing with their left side forward, so that just feels natural for them. Other people that are right-handed might feel much more comfortable training, putting all their emphasis on having the right side forward because that's their smart hand, their most coordinated hand, that's going to be doing most of the work. And that's why Bruce Lee, with his Jeet Kune Do, always had his right side forward because he was right-handed and that was a smart hand. Okay? So either way you want to work it. But there are times when you're going to want to switch, and that's this nice circle step where I, from the rear leg, just step forward, replace, and then I reset, back in a good stance, or I step back. So again, it should be a nice, smooth transition. All right, begin this side forward, and step out with this one. Okay. Now, that's essentially the basics. Forward, back, side to side, being able to switch. Okay. From a Wing Chun perspective, I don't think you'll find this in any of the old school boxing manuals. From a Wing Chun's perspective, like I said, we like to flank the opponent, get to the side when we can. At least we do in Pin Sun Wing Chun. So, this is from the dummy. That ability to go around to the other side of the dummy is very valuable. And with this kind of footwork, it's simply being squared with the opponent, working on whatever we're working on to do that circular step at an angle here and pivot right back into the opponent. So maybe I've been here, he's thrown a wide punch, I've caught it with a step, and then I pivot back, and I'm right on that 45-degree line. So if I show it from this side, my right side is forward, again all I'm doing is stepping out and pivoting back. Here, we've done something, I stepped out and I pivot back. I could have had my left side forward, right? And I could still step out and pivot back. Could be here, he's throwing a wide punch, I smother the punch just to get this angle, so then I pivot back into him. I'm here, I step out and pivot back. And of course, when I'm at this range, then my standard Wing Chun can kick in, right? So obviously at this range is where I'm going to be pivoting, turning the opponent, and moving him as much as possible, and using my typical Wing Chun style footwork, my Yuji Kim Young Ma, my pivots, working him as much as possible. I got back to this range, now I'm back to this kind of footwork and this kind of structure.